Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. This is live stream 938. Pretty dramatic there, right? Bam. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and usually taking a first look at a game. Every once in a while, I'll do a live review on the show. But tonight, it is a Wargame Wednesday, compliments of our good friends over at GMT Games, because I am going to unbox and take a first look at Seas of Thunder, 1939 to 1945. This is a pretty grand strategic scale naval war game of World War II. Taking a peek at the back there. We'll get a closer look at this in just a bit. It's got a good amount of heft to it as well. So I am mighty curious to take a peek inside Seas of Thunder because I happen to be a naval war game fan, dating way back to playing Fletcher Pratt's naval war game in high school. No, not in the 1930s when it came out. Although, for a second there, I think Fletcher Pratt's naval war game may have actually been in the 1920s when he started playing it. I don't think he published the booklet until I think 1936, somewhere around there. If you're ever curious, do a search on Google for Fletcher Pratt's naval war game. And I haven't done it in a while, but a few years ago, used to be able to pull up a couple of old magazines. I think one was Life, and I think another was an issue of Look that actually had articles about Fletcher Pratt's naval warfare. So, because it's a miniatures game, so, but a huge scale, at least back in the day when they played it in ballrooms. Anywho, little nugget of info. Should mention, if you are tuning in because you want to check out the live unboxing and first look at Seas of Thunder, should point out we tackled the tabletop gaming news first around here. So it's probably going to be about 40, maybe 45 minutes before we jump on into that unboxing. So if you are watching live, kick back, relax, put your feet up. It's hump day. Happy hump day. Be good to yourself. Now, of course, if you're watching this 30 minutes or more after the show ends, there are timestamps. So you can jump right past the news if you'd like, get right into that unboxing if you're impatient. And depending on what device you happen to be watching this on, the timestamps could be right there in the timeline in front of you, or you can always find them in the show notes portion of this page. And when I say page, I mean, what's surrounding this video, not like I'm on a page or something like that. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, there is chat available because this is a live stream. Although you must be a subscriber to the channel and must be a subscriber for at least 48 hours in order to take part in chat. It's how I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, maybe you want a closer peek at something in Seas of Thunder, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is the Motor City Madman himself. Yes, the Madman is with us, as is Stray Kismet, Kathy Evans, Roger Perdome, and Kevin R. Smith to this point. Oh, and Russell Higgins just popped into chat as well. So welcome aboard, everybody. So Kevin says, I heard that Fletcher Pratt's naval game not only involved lots of people, but it was a free-for-all, everybody versus everybody, not one side against another. Untrue. Absolutely untrue. Yes, you could have tons of people involved. That's why they played in ballrooms, because the scale was huge. Like, so a destroyer would be about this big. And they were usually made out of balsa wood and stuff. Like I said, you got to check out some of these photographs because Fletcher Pratt had a huge selection. In fact, interestingly enough, I had somebody reach out one time. This is probably about 10 years ago, maybe even longer than that. Maybe it's about 13 years ago, because that's when we launched thegaminggang.com, and one of the first articles that we had shared was a write-up about playing Fletcher Pratt's. And my buddy Scott, who you've seen from time to time pop into chat, had actually sent me the pictures of some of the old like hand-drawn ships that we used and some of the sheets that we typed up and everything, because, you know, God knows we didn't have computers that could do that back then. I mean, they existed, but we, as, you know, high schoolers, we didn't have access to that. We were lucky if we had, I don't know, like Commodore 64s, VIC 20s, you know, things like that. But as far as everybody was versus everybody, no, you actually would have people representing, you know, a side, a fleet. So one of the big things about Fletcher Pratt's was that you had essentially a ship value. So you could conceivably say, okay, well, you guys are going to get 2 million points to buy your fleet, and you get 2 million points to buy your fleet. So if I remember correctly, I think like a ship like the Yamato would have been 800,000 points. So essentially damage points. But unfortunately, Kevin, you have been misled. So, and I have run it with my nephew and, of course, my best friend, Elliot Miller, and some of my nephew Cameron's friends and things like that. And usually I'll give them a couple of ships to handle. And I tend to throw like battleships at each other. But yeah, so I have some like other rules, like house rules for like critical hits and things like that, because you do not have incidents like the HMS Hood just getting hit by a shell that just penetrates the right place and sets off a magazine, and boom. It's all just progressive step by step by step by step reduction. So, and plus it speeds up the game a little bit. Anyway, enough about that. We're actually here to take a look at Seas of Thunder tonight, as opposed to listening to me regale you with tales of the old days of playing Fletcher Pratt's, or as we used to refer to it as Fletcher's. Flaming Huron is with us. So we've got two of our chat moderators with us tonight. So we've got the Madman and Flaming Huron, and I would take a stab in the dark that we have another chat moderator hanging out as well. So if Sarah D's with us, howdy, howdy. She usually just kind of lurks around, doesn't necessarily chime right in. All right, so let's jump on into the news because I've got a nice eclectic mix tonight. Arriving in August from Renegade Game Studios is the search for lost species. Here's what I know. Thousands of plants and animals have been discovered, but haven't been seen for decades and could be on the brink of extinction. In order to save these species, we must first find them again. The Search for Lost Species is a game about this real world search. You're a scientist on an expedition to find one of those lost species, focusing on those in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. The organization Rewild has compiled a list of lost species around the world at rewild.org/lost-species. They engage in expeditions with numerous partners to find these lost species and encourage others to conduct their own expeditions to rediscover these amazing lost species. In this deduction game, you'll work to locate these lost species. How many times am I going to say lost species? And put them back on the map. This is a follow up to the hit game The Search for Planet X, one of the 2021 South by Southwest Tabletop Games of the Year. Okay, South by Southwest? Man, sometimes these companies just go out and stretch it a little bit about, oh, well, it's Tabletop Game of the Year from Forbes magazine. And yes, I know Forbes magazine does share tabletop gaming news and reviews for some ungodly, bizarre reason. I'm not knocking this game. I'm just saying, I thought The Search for Planet X was a bigger hit with people other than South by Southwest. You will use logic and deduction to search for species thought to be extinct. Hey, they didn't say lost species there. Report your sightings through the free app to determine if they are confirmed. As if to find out if they really have been found? I'm not sure what that's. This is a game, right? People realize this. We're not going to Indonesia to actually try to find this stuff. It's a game. It's also got a double-sided board which provides 2 different island maps to explore, as well as 6 different lost species to find, one being a grasshopper I had noticed. This is also an eco-friendly production. The Search for Lost Species is for 1 to 4 players, ages 13 and up. It's going to play in 60 to 75 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $45 when it lands in stores on August 3rd. I got to say, I thought this seemed pretty interesting. I have never played The Search for Planet X. Do not know how it is. Although I guess the folks at South by Southwest just love the shit out of it. I'm just teasing. If I didn't find this to be interesting, I would not be sharing this news piece with you. But I just thought it was kind of weird. And then it's like, oh, report your findings on the app. And I think it's really an app that's tied into Rewild. So we found this lost species, which in real life, unfortunately, is extinct. But we found it in the game. Don't know. I am curious, though. Sarah D says, don't stab in the dark. That's where I'm hiding. All right, I will not do that. I was going to say, you've got the red hair. How could you be hiding in the dark? Easily found. Moving right along. A title which started the entire North Sea series of games is getting a rebuild by way of a Kickstarter from Garphill Games. I've got the skinny on Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux, which is set in the early years of the Viking Age, circa 800 AD. As Viking shipwrights, players compete to construct the greatest fleet on the North Sea. Players must collect oak, wool, and iron, as well as getting other craftspeople on board to help. Gold is a precious commodity and must be spent wisely. As you would expect, the township is filled with an array of characters, bad and worse. Better hope they're on your side. The aim of Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux is to be the player with the most victory points at the end of the game. Points are gained by constructing longships and buildings, recruiting jarls, attracting heroes, and collecting gold. Over the course of 5 rounds, players will draft village cards and must carefully manage their resources and workforce to set their settlement apart as the most glorious amongst all the clans. We are the most glorious. Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux is an entirely new game. While it shares a lot of thematic elements and player goals from the original, the core gameplay has been completely rebuilt to create an experience much more in line with what fans of Garphill Games have come to expect. I thought that was very interesting that it is not just simply kind of a deluxe edition or something like that. This is actually a rebuilt game. Shipwrights of the North Sea Redux is for 1 to 5 players, ages 13 and up, and plays in about 60 minutes. The project on Kickstarter is over 1,000% funded. You can reserve a copy of the game for a $45 pledge through July 12th, with an expected delivery next February. I got to point out, have not played Shipwrights of the North Sea, but I have mentioned previously, we are big fans of Raiders of the North Sea. Especially my nephew Cameron really, really likes it. Although I got to say, I think part of the reason is because the metallic coins. I think that's one of the reasons he likes kind of, like jingling those coins in his hand. Sardi says, we don't glow in the dark. I wasn't saying you glow in the dark. He says, well, maybe our skin does. We are kind of pale. Don't know what to tell you about that. Yes, most redheads, natural redheads, are relatively pale skin, which is cool with me. I am a fan. So let's talk about some role-playing game news, because right now you can score really big savings on the Warlock and Warp Star role-playing games from Fire Ruby Designs by way of bundle of holding. And I've got the deets on the deal. Adventura! This new Warlock Warp Star bundle presents 2 tabletop role-playing games from Fire Ruby Designs, inspired by the early days of British role-playing. Ready your Warhammer, wink wink nudge nudge, or Slug Projector for rules light adventure in the dark yet wondrous spirit of early Games Workshop and the Fighting Fantasy game books. The fantasy game Warlock and its standalone compatible space opera companion Warp Star both feature career-based characters, concise rules, and a unified 1d20 plus skill mechanic that adapts easily to published grim and perilous adventures and helps you create your own new stories. For just $12.95, you'll get all 5 titles in the Warlock collection, which has a retail value of $65, as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete Warlock Traders Edition core rulebook, previously featured in the January 2023 non-OGL Fantasy Bundle, the Compendium 3 Rules Expansion, and 3 current Warlock source books, the Kingdom Traders Edition, the City Book Rebecca, and the Seagoing Campaign Book Buccaneer. And I do believe all 3 of those are also Traders Edition. If you pay more than the current threshold price of $25.02, don't forget that 2 cents, you'll level up and also get the entire Warp Star collection with 5 more titles worth an additional $68, including the complete Warp Star standalone core rulebook and 4 Warp Star supplements, Caldera, Dire Threats, Hegemony, and Omeron. These savings will run through July 17th, and 10% of your payment after gateway fees will be donated to Direct Relief. I say it all the time whenever I do a little news piece with something with Warlock or Warp Star. I am always intrigued by these. I have heard good things about Warlock. I am familiar with first edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, seeing that I had the core book and some of the hardcover adventures back in the day. But as far as like fighting fantasy with the Steve Jackson that I don't mind talking about, I've actually never checked those out. And I do understand that fighting fantasy is still pretty popular on the other side of the pond. So pretty sweet. Pretty nice deal. You can get a lot. I don't want to say everything because I know there's more Warlock content out there, but you can get a lot of what's available for both Warlock and Warp Star for $25.02. As Flaming Aaron says, the other Steve Jackson. Yes. Yes, it is. Disavow 92 is with us in chat, as is Testy Trekkie. Welcome aboard. So let's move on to the next news piece because Troll Lord Games is entering its final week on Kickstarter for the Castles and Crusades Adventures Armory project. Here's the scoop. To battle! The ringing of sword on sword, the hewing axe as it thuds into wood and iron, the whistling arrow as it leaves the bent bow, the dull clattering of hafts upon helm and shaft, the crumpled rage of iron beaten by hammer and blade. These are the sounds of battle. These are the weapons of war, the armors, shields, and helms. Welcome to the Armory. The Adventurers Armory Kickstarter consists of the following 3 items. The Adventurers Armory, which is going to be approximately 250 pages, and it will be a hardcover. Welcome to this illustrated guide of weapons and armor with well over 1,800 entries to enhance your gameplay. Must all come from Gary Gygax's notebooks. Oh, I jest. But he loved his pole arms. You know that. It includes armament and armors of all kinds, from and inspired by many different periods and cultures. Complementing that are hosts of weapons, clubs, maces, flails, knives, daggers, axes, swords, polearms, propelled and thrown weapons, such as spears, bows, crossbows, and even siege and naval weapons. Each entry includes a table with all the stats needed for quick play, as well as optional rules and proficiency rules. The tables are a follow-up with a brief description of the weapon, its intended purpose, and an illustration. Probably the most important aspect of that, the illustration. So then you can find out what is the difference between a mace, a flail, and a morning star. I know, I'm sure many of you do as well, but I know there's some folks out there who don't. We also have the Monstrous Armory, which will be approximately 128 pages, also a hardcover. In Monstrous Armory, Castles and Crusades unleashes those weapons and armor used by monsters, humanoids, fae, giants, magical beasts, and even aberrations. Chosen and preferred weapons for kobolds, gnolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, orcs, and more mark the book's beginning, but it doesn't stop there. From the salamander's blades to the giant scythe, we give the castle keeper a whole new range of tools to bring mayhem to the table like never before. The Monstrous Armory marks a whole new chapter in monster development, giving them tools for war that fit their physical makeup and cultural outlook. And then finally, we have War Mounts, which will be a soft cover of approximately 30 pages. In the adventurer's backpack, we explored the war mount, from the horse to the camel, from the pony to the bear. In war mounts, we'll take that information and expand upon it, creating ready made mounts for players and monsters alike. From the commonly depicted warg riding goblin to the ranger's griffin and beyond, to the less commonly known kobold's fire drake and the death knight's nightmare. In mythical companions, we expanded the role that familiars have with classes. This included special mounts, such for paladins. In war mounts, both are merged. War mounts explores the beasts of war, their stats, peculiar natures, who rides them, and more. All these books are fully illustrated by Peter Bradley, sporting cover art by Zoe DeVos and Peter Bradley. There is a short Kickstarter video. It's about a minute long for the Kickstarter. So let's give it a peek. There are a variety of pledge levels for the Adventurer's Armory for Castles and Crusades, but you can score all three print editions with PDFs for a $99 pledge through July 5th. Yes, and I got to be honest, I forgot to take a peek to see when the expected delivery was. Yeah, nice going, Jeff. I'll be honest, I think Troll Games is pretty good on turnaround on some of their Kickstarters. So I would take a guess Q1 of next year. I don't think we're looking at the end of this year, although I think these are like the first two, the Adventures Armory and the Monstrous Armory, have been released previously. So I think they're just kind of revised a little bit. But very cool. You already know I really, really dig Castles and Crusades. I say it all the time. If you want that kind of old school feel for fantasy role playing, but you want more modern mechanics, Castles and Crusades is certainly one for you to take a peek at. Gotta be honest, I was going to interview Stephen Chenault and Davis Chenault, and yes, that is how their names are pronounced, because I thought it was Chenault, but is Chenault. I had it all set up last Friday and couldn't get Skype to work right so that I could import the video into the program I use to stream, OBS Studio. And it kind of pissed me off because we were going to talk about this Kickstarter and some other things on the horizon for Castles and Crusades. And it was really irritating because I had used Skype about a month ago and there was no problems whatsoever. So once again, something gets updated along the way and things don't work anymore. It's like, so Tessie Trekkie asked, there's a British Steve Jackson? Yes, there is. Yes, and Kevin's pointing out, of course, you've got You got to have the glaive gisarm. I think that's how it's pronounced, or the gisarm glaive. Yeah, that's a Gary Gygax kind of thing. Hey, I know what a bill hook is. Give me a little credit there, right? I know the difference between mace flail and Morningstar, and I know what a bill hook is. So Russell Higgins says that stuff breaking builds character. Thank you, Russell. Actually, they turned me on to Chuck Cumbo, I think maybe is how it's pronounced, who is kind of the PR person for Troll Lord Games. Turned me on to this other way of doing like group interviews and that, which looks pretty cool, a little complex. So, and of course, it's something completely different that I would have to learn. So I'm kind of dipping my toes into that to be able to use that in the future. So, long story short, there will be an interview with Stephen and Davis from Troll Lord Games in the not too distant future. So, final news piece, soon to be available in print and PDF, is the Fantasy World role playing game core book. Here's the skinny from Ares Games and MS Edizione. Fantasy World is a tabletop role playing game of dramatic fantasy adventures in which you explore a wonderful and terrible world through the lives and journeys of a company of protagonists. Inspired by the narrative structures underpinning much of fantasy literature, from novel sagas to TV series, comic books, graphic novels, and films, Fantasy World is structured to be an immersive and emotional experience driven by a revolutionary take on the Powered by the Apocalypse rulebook created specifically for a generation of players. So, real quick question there, because I'm not super up on PBTA. I thought it's just the Apocalypse engine. Is there actually a PBTA rulebook? Or is there like an SRD for PBTA? I don't know. I just thought it sounded kind of strange saying it's a revolutionary take on the Powered by the Apocalypse rulebook. Don't know. The greatest heroes are and remain, in essence, people who love and hate, dream and worry, fight and prevail, getting into trouble and adventures only to come out changed and grown up. Regardless of how epic or trivial their deeds may be, they are important because they have personal meaning. Keeping a promise to a child, defeating a monstrous evil, trying to understand an enemy, overthrowing a tyrant, or becoming one. Fantasy World is a tabletop role playing game that takes the lessons learned in 11 years of Powered by the Apocalypse games and distills them into rules and procedures. It is both a love letter and a dedicated critique of a classic design. It is a newcomer to town that seeks to refine and make more accessible the Powered by the Apocalypse structure while standing on the shoulders of the giants that preceded it. It includes Powered by the Apocalypse rules demystified. Everything is as clear, simple, unambiguous, accessible, and practical as possible. There's intuitive world building. Most of the moves and reactions are designed to directly or indirectly produce new pieces and details of the game setting. There's problem and doubt. The very structure of each protagonist incorporates mechanics that produce an emergent narrative arc, allowing players to effortlessly and naturally explore their player characters' drives and motivations. There's blood and belonging, an inclusive and fresh way to express the physical and cultural uniqueness of each character. A further axis of player generated exploration and a powerful tool for the world to easily portray NPCs as real people with a rich and diverse presence. I believe the game master in this is referred to as the world. No joke. It includes narrative damage. Dispensing with numbers and non essential rules makes Combat's sudden, brutal, and dynamic. Violence is always meaningful and impactful, never trivial and without consequences. Tactical storytelling replaces the hunt for yet another +1 modifier. The 320-page hardcover for Fantasy World will hit stores in August. It's going to carry an MSRP of $40, but you can grab the PDF right now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $20. Yes, and I got to say I'm very curious. I have actually Dungeon World was the Powered by the Apocalypse core book or rule book that I kind of delved the most into. I have taken a peek at Apocalypse World in the past. So I'm kind of curious as far as how they're going to make these changes. So I am intrigued. I really am intrigued. And I have to point out, Ares Games doesn't tend to release role playing games. I don't know if this is a first or not. It very well could be. Now, of course, the game is created by the Italian game company MS Edizioni, I think it's pronounced something along those lines. But the English edition hardcover is going to come from Ares Games. Sweet. Very nice. So, once again, as I said, I'm intrigued. So, Kevin says, oh my God, Powered by the Apocalypse is 10 to 15 years old. I guess you can call it a classic at this point. So, uh, Bill N is with us, as is Shaz in chat. Bill N says, I don't have the lookup rule book move. I like that one. I like that one. So Kevin says they've never heard of a Powered by the Apocalypse SRD, but Kevin's not all that well versed in Powered by the Apocalypse either. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe they were trying to say that they're like kind of turning the game plan on its head as opposed to rule book. So, or or we're changing the rules kind of thing but they're not actually referring to a real rule book. Don't know. Kevin says apparently someone released something called Simple World, which is a toolkit for making your own customized Powered by the Apocalypse game. It seems to be the closest thing to a generic PBTA rule set around. One thing that I have noticed, which kind of gave me sort of a tiny dungeon second edition feel to Fantasy World, is that they have kind of like micro settings. So I took a peek. In fact, the images you're looking at are actually from the Kickstarter that was successful. Uh, some of the like stretch goals were like mini settings. So I thought, okay. All right. I think Tiny Dungeon Second Edition is a cool game to introduce people to role playing games. It's pretty solid, pretty easy system. It's certainly not doesn't have any crunch to it, but still. And I am curious how they made Powered by the Apocalypse easier for people to understand, because it can be a little daunting for some out there to wrap their heads around it. I should say, Brian Foley has stopped on into chat. Yes, it's been a while since we've seen Brian in chat with us. Tessie Trekkie says, I want more fantasy games and settings where, while the world has dark people and places, the overall tone is that there is hope and the PCs can make the world a better place. What? You don't like Grimdark? I'm not a huge fan of Grimdark either. I will mention there is that new fantasy role playing game that is coming from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. Gosh, off the top of my head, I don't remember the title to it. And it is kind of a dark setting, but it was even in the sell sheet information pointing out that this is a land where hope exists, hope remains, that it's not, well, we're all screwed. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what's going on. So Flaming Heron says there are plenty of core rule books for Powered by the Apocalypse out there. Anthony Good's with us. Good to see you. Broken Weave, thank you. I would never have remembered that. Never. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. So as I mentioned, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Storyteller's Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep gaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. And there are quite a few people out there who use the banner ads and or visit paypal.me. And it is much appreciated because I do not run Kickstarters. I don't have a Patreon. I'm not looking to dip my hand into your pocket on a constant basis. So that's one of the ways I stick around. Another way that I stick around is every once in a while I have a game sale. I am in the midst of a game sale right now. There are still approximately 150 board games, war games, and role-playing game titles, which are available on the cheap. So if you would like to help out and get some games into a good home, I'm assuming you have a good home, be sure to stop by thegaminggang.com and check out the game sale. So by all means, do that. All right, so we are going to be diving on into Seas of Thunder in just a couple of moments. There was something real quickly I wanted to mention, and it's irritating, but I have to bring this up from time to time. The format of the show is the format of the show. We do tabletop gaming news, do a review, do a first look at a game. That's how it works. 938 episodes. Now, I had somebody comment on last night's show, and essentially, they say to me that, this is another thing I love. I love when people tell me what I've got to do. You've got to do this. And then you can check out the comment. I did not block this person. I did not delete their comment, anything like that. So, in essence, they said that they watched the video and they felt like they had been baited into watching this video because they wanted to see the Cyberpunk review, but half the video has nothing to do with Cyberpunk. And, they were baited, and that I should have taken that video and had 2 videos out of it. One video for the news, one video for the review. Well, for one, most of the videos are standalone review videos, right? I shouldn't say most of the videos. Most of the reviews, the vast majority of the reviews that I do are standalone videos. Only once in a while do I do reviews that are live because it's not that easy to do a live review. So anyway, I was basically like, hey man, what part of the timestamps don't you understand? I mentioned it moments into the video that, hey, if you want it If you want to jump past, there are timestamps. And Russell Higgins says, can't you fast forward? That's the other thing. Do people not understand how to fast forward through a fucking YouTube video? You don't even need timestamps. So anyway, so I said, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. I mean, if you can't figure out how to use timestamps on a video, then I don't know how you're bright enough to be interested in playing or running a role-playing game. Because what pissed me off wasn't the whole, oh, you should have split that video into 2 videos. It was, you baited me into watching this video. So they're essentially saying, and other commenters said the same thing, you're accusing me of putting out a clickbait video, which is absolutely not the case. And nothing pisses me off more than somebody trying to tell me that I'm producing clickbait, because that's something I am vehemently against in all ways. You never find a clickbait title on any of the articles or news pieces or anything like that on the Gaming Gang. You certainly don't see me do clickbait titles in my videos. 10 tips for new players to Cyberpunk Red. So anyway, they came back and they're like, oh, but I'm a subscriber and I love your content and blah, blah, blah. So now they're like, oh, why were you mean to me? I'm just being helpful, kind of bullshit. And it's like, no, you weren't. You were being a dick. You accused me of clickbait. So, Flaming Heron says, last night's show, I guess they deleted their comment then. Phil Hen says, yeah, YouTube isn't new tech. Flaming Heron says, or it's not showing up. They see 3 comments besides it saying 13 comments. I shall real quickly, I don't want to bring this show to a screeching halt. So let's take a peek. I do not want it to start playing. Weird, because it is not. Yeah, that's kind of strange. I'm now I'm not signed in as me. I'm taking a peek. Just, my Gmail account. And no, it's not showing it, but it does say 13 comments. So very strange. So the point is, the show is the show. I mean, I try to make it easy for people and say, okay, here's timestamps. If you want to jump past the news, that's fine. But we have gone over this before. There are people who tune in to the show for the news. They really don't care about a lot of the games that I feature. They also show up because they like hanging out in chat. So don't tell me what I should be doing with this show. There are so many other content creators out there that you can go get your 2-minute fill of their video. Go enjoy yourself over there. It's just, I've said it before, say it again. I'm an acquired taste. It's just how it works. I don't mind that it's like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I've got 100,000 subscribers. No, it doesn't really, that doesn't matter to me. But one thing I will say I find interesting is there are some pretty popular content creators out there for tabletop gaming that will pull in like 5,000 views on a video and they'll have like 30 likes. That tells you something. Here around these parts, we usually run about 15%. So Chaz says, you mean they don't like the intermission either? I don't know. Sarah D points out she's not a tabletop gamer at all. She's a PC gamer. She's there to lurk and enjoy the show. There we go. So Disavow92 says, sounds like you're renting spaces super casuals. Don't do that. Well, this guy swears up and down that he's a subscriber and blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever. What I'm pointing out is the show's format is the show's format. If you don't like it, didn't cost you anything to come in. Won't cost you anything to go out. So there you go. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to be diving on into Seas, it is plural, of Thunder from GMT in just a moment. But first, it's time for a brief intermission. And maybe you won't like that either, but hey, it's free. If I can bring it up.
Everybody loves pizza, the worldwide taste treat. And no one makes more delicious pizza than you'll get at our snack bar. Pizza, please. It's freshly baked to your order, served crisp and piping hot, skillfully prepared with a delicious combination of mozzarella, provolone, and Romano cheeses. In our full individual size, with our deluxe sauce that's lip-smacking good. Yes, everybody loves pizza. Join the crowd headed for the snack bar, where everybody orders that delicious, wholesome, taste-tempting pizza.
Slow down. Take it smooth and easy.
It's intermission time, folks.
Once again, we join the adorable penguin family in their quest for fun, adventure, and vegetable treats along the highways and byways of America.
Penguins? Not again! I'm thirsty.
Me too.
Uh-oh. Looks like another job for Clark Crow. Here goes! Charge! That should do it. Now, how about something cold and refreshing for those dry throats?
I'd like a Diet Coke.
I'll take an ice cold Coke.
Sprite for me, eh?
There's plenty of popcorn and candy, too.
Four score. Four more cups of Coke, please.
Fully! We cannot tell a lie.
Coke is it?
Now it's your turn to join me at the snack bar for some wonderful refreshments.
Where's everybody going? To the refreshment center. It's everybody's favorite spot for delicious, tasty food from a snack to a full meal. Drinks, coffee, hot chocolate, and ice-cold drinks of all flavors, plus all the extras including gum, ice cream, candy. Make your evening at this drive-in even more enjoyable. The refreshment stand has everything to make your visit here a pleasant one. Why not get something now?
And now, on with the show.
There you go. That was a long enough, brief intermission for you to go out and get your nachos. I saw a comment, zip by, say, you need to have longer, brief intermissions. I don't have time to go get nachos. There you have it. All righty. So tonight I am going to be unboxing and taking a first look at Seas of Thunder from GMT Games. It's designed by Neil Kabolsky, Jeff Horger, and Chuck Maher. Strangely enough, there's no indication that I ran across of who's done like the graphic design and things like that. Probably find that inside. This strategic level World War II naval war game is for 2 players, ages 14 and up, plays in around 2 to 12 hours, does carry an MSRP of $65, which I gotta say, for as hefty as this box is, that seems like a pretty good price. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Seas of Thunder. So first of all, let's get rid of the shrink wrap. And we'll take a peek at the back. I'm not going to read all of this, but we'll give you kind of a breakdown. Seas of Thunder is a fast-action 2-player game on the entire naval conflict of World War II, allowing players to recreate the Atlantic and Pacific theaters of war and experience the challenge of juggling resources to cover the entire global war. How do you protect a globe from German raiders? How desperate was it for Britain when France fell and they were left to fight Germany and Italy alone on the high seas? What is the right balance for the Soviet fleet, split between 4 distinct fronts: Baltic, Black Sea, Arctic, and Pacific? If the Mediterranean force weakens for the Allies, where do they draw ships from? Does Japan strike quickly or play for attrition when they arrive at the halfway point? Will America fight in 2 fronts, 3, or 4? Nice. All right, so let's jump on in, start taking a peek here. So I noticed it has a relatively low complexity. I think the complexity was showing a 4. And solitaire suitability is 6. So not too shabby. So I have to laugh, as I've pointed out previously. Board Game Geek is not necessarily your best place for specifics about games because it indicated that this is for 2 to 8 players and plays in 3 hours, 3 to like 100 hours, something like that. And I was like, okay. Flaming Heron says, get settled in for that 12-hour game. So, art director, Roger B. McGowan. There we go. All right. So, this is our rule book. So, it's going to give us a breakdown on the playing pieces. We have port mats. It's got our setup and sequence of play. So, our sequence of play is add reinforcements and refits, place convoys, move French ships, move Allied ships. French ships aren't considered allies. They're not part of the Allies. Move Axis ships, place Allied air, place Axis and Vichy air, resolve combats, score victory points, return to base, and advance the turn marker. So we have some information about reinforcements and repairing ships. If combat says if a sea zone holds ships of opposing sides, combat will occur during the combat phase. Consists of 9 combat sequence segments executed in the following order: air superiority, airstrikes, anti-submarine warfare, raiders, submarine attacks, mine warfare, surface line, surface reserve, and convoy attacks. Just kind of flipping on through. We've got control of sea zones. Flaming Huron says, plenty of nacho breaks. Just don't touch the pieces. And we were talking about that last night. Don't be eating greasy food and playing my games. I don't care if you're rolling your dice with those Cheeto fingers, but don't be picking up, cards and tokens and counters. So we've got our scenarios. So this is our rules. Is this pretty much it? I don't know. Looks like it. I kind of get the impression that this is relatively abstracted. I know, I think there were, I said I know, and then I think. I know there are people out there who are thinking that this might be along the lines of something like Victory at Sea, that venerable title. I would think this would be more complex. So we have the first scenario, Raider Warfare. So it's 3 game turns, and you use the early war side of the map. Wow, there's multiple sides on the map. Interesting. Second scenario is Struggle for the Middle Sea. Says it's the most unusual scenario in the game. It starts out with Germany and Italy taking on the UK, France, Norway, and the Netherlands. But at the conclusion of turn 4, France and Norway surrender, leaving the British and the Dutch in the worst situation the Allies will face in any scenario. And it looks like it says this is 4 turns. And it starts on, is this the same? Yeah, it's the same scenario. It says starts on game turn 4 and ends at the conclusion of game turn 7. So really, France is only in it for a turn. Scenario 3, drum beats. The scenario begins to tilt the balance of power more directly in favor of the Allies, once again placing the Axis nations on the reactive. The addition of the Soviet fleet is not a massive force enhancer now because their ships weren't very modern. But the opening of more fronts and the influx of opposing ships into seas where they were less likely to be encountered will result in a massive change in the strategy of both sides. With the inclusion of Russia into the war, the Allies gain more convoys to protect. At the same time, they gain more ships to work with. And this is 3 game turns. Okay. Red Sun Rising. This is it, the big one. Every fleet is in play and each is at or near its strongest point. The war will rage across 4 oceans and every accessible sea on the globe. The balance of this scenario teeters on the brink, but at the same time is very steady. It seems as if either side could falter just once and the tide will shift. Yet there are so many fulcrum points that an Allied win in the Med could easily be offset by a strong Japanese showing in the South Pacific. For the entire duration of the scenario, it should feel that things are on the edge of going south for both sides. And this says the scenario covers 4 game turns and it starts on game turn 11. So you're using the late war side. I was going to say there's got to be something here that's just the entire war, which is probably that 12-hour scenario. So we've got Shattered Sword. It says this is very similar to scenario 4. The biggest difference is the scuttling of the Vichy fleet, I should say, and the return of the Free French ships to the Allied side, albeit at reduced efficiency. Other than that, war still rages fiercely over the globe. Then we got Neptune's Inferno. Says this is the first scenario that highlights the decline of the war. By this time, the Allied industrial might was clearly weighing the naval war in favor of the Western powers. And the surrender of Italy at the conclusion of scenario 5 means the Axis war effort is now down to a severely reduced German fleet made up almost entirely of U-boats and the slowly deteriorating Japanese Navy taking on the full front of a geared up United States and United Kingdom force augmented by capable French and Soviet secondary fleets. It's also 4 turns. And then we have red sun setting. I think we know what that means. This is the single most unbalanced scenario in the game. The Axis powers are at an all-time low. And to make the scenario more competitive, we started it on the eve of Liti Golf. Yeah, that would make things a little more even. If they started it after it, isn't much left for the Japanese. Otherwise, it would be an even more mismatched competition. The Allies can do almost whatever they want, go in whatever force they want, and lose all the ships they feel necessary to succeed. The Axis are reduced to almost exclusively hunting convoys and fighting for a small number of sea zones, usually doing both at a heavy cost. And then we have World War II at Sea. This is the campaign game. The scenario covers the full war and will take many hours to play, at least 60. Okay, so you heard right there, 60 hours, you're going to get your money's worth. But maybe more if you proceed at a leisurely pace. Oh, I guess it's 60 hours if you're really pushing it. Quantum Phase Dragon is with us in chat. Hopefully I've said hello to everybody who's hanging with us tonight. So that is the full length. It's 25 game turns. Then we've got some examples of play. I don't think we've got a playbook. I think this is going to be kind of our playbook section here. We should have some designer notes then. Graphics look pretty nice. There we go. Designer notes. Oh, it actually gives us some information about the different scenarios. Or at least 3 of them. Cool. So Quantum Phase Dragon says, hey, this looks fun. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty interesting. As I pointed out earlier, if you are joining us a little bit late, then I should mention that I'm a big fan of naval war games. Always have been. So Brian Foley is asking, what is everyone's record for longest game they have played? Okay, well, we have to toss role-playing games out. So we're talking war games, board games, miniatures games. I started off the show by talking about Fletcher Pratt's naval war game, and I would think that's probably the longest I've played. We actually spent a weekend. It was my good friends Tim Phelan, Daryl Melzer, Scott Weigel. I think there was somebody else, and Elliot and myself, and we played Midway. So it was the Battle of Midway, and Elliot and I were the allies, and spent the whole weekend playing that, and plotting movement and stuff like that. If I remember right, I think it was Scott who was kind of like game mastering it, refereeing it, and we never actually had any combat with surface encounters. It was all aerial, and the reality is the aerial rules for the air combat and bombing and things like that from Fletcher Pratt's were pretty weak. But we wiped out the Japanese fleet. Don't think they ever found us, to be honest. All right, so we've got a couple of player aids here. I'll actually hold them a little closer up so you can get a better view here. Hopefully we've got a nice sharp image tonight. So that would be the longest game I have played off the top of my head. And I would think all in all, it was probably about, I think we kicked off on Friday night, wrapped up Sunday afternoon. I mean, it wasn't the only thing we played, but All right, so we've got, oh, so we've got, this is cool. We've got port mats for each scenario. Wow, that's pretty cool. So this for scenario, these are for the allies. And these are dual-sided. So this is the allied port mat for scenario 4. This was for scenario 1. Here's scenario 2. And then scenario 5. Scenario 3. And scenario 6, which wasn't scenario 6 the whole shebang? I thought scenario 6 is the entire war. Because as you can see, far more ports here. Now we've got the Axis, scenario 1. San Antonio? Well, I guess that becomes a possibility, huh? That's pretty wild. It's considered the South Pacific. And then this is, oh no, hang on, Allied Port Mat scenario 7. So maybe this is scenario 7 might be the entire war. So this is Axis scenario 2 and 5. Very interesting how we've got these different mats, because if you think about it, it could have just been like a little bit, larger and just have everything on here. Very cool how we've got it for each of the scenarios. So you know what your focus is. You're not searching. It's far easier to find. The earlier scenarios have fewer ports. So here's 4. So here it's showing Axis gained control of these ports before rebasing in turn 11. And then this is for scenario 7. Like I said, very, very interesting. Let's fold these back up. It's like we've got some punch boards, counter sheets coming up. And this is where I would think you might have a little bit of trouble because of how many counters we've got and finding specific ships, because we do have, my gosh, I can't even read these. I mean, I can read the factors on them. I can't read the actual ship name. So that's pretty wild. Huh. Interesting. So as you can see, these are going to be dual-sided. So of course, you're going to have this side because, ships haven't been identified, right? So here we've got those. Not sure what the stripes represent across them. So US. Trying to see. Yeah, because I think that says it's the Hornet. I think. Plus, there's like a lot. So there we go. So more US. Gonna take a guess. Great Britain or the UK, Soviets, French. Taking a stab in the dark there. Or no, these are just convoys. Oh, there you go. Now we know. Soviets, US, and Italy. There we go. Isn't that the Greek flag? Thought that's a Greek flag. All right, Japan. So once again, we got a whole lot of these. So Flaming Heron says, now without my magnifying glass, here we've got Great Britain then. So Kathy Evans says that they played Gloomhaven 2 Saturday sessions a month for about 3 months. Each was about 4 hours. I would say, doesn't that kind of fall sort of into your like role-playing game kind of category? Oh, speaking of role-playing games and Gloomhaven, I thought it was funny how they were like, oh, it's the most anticipated role-playing game ever. And yes, I get it. There are a lot of people who are very excited about the Gloomhaven role-playing game. It funded within seconds. I get it. But come on, you can't tell me that the Gloomhaven role-playing game was more eagerly anticipated than 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Please. Probably 2nd edition Pathfinder was more eagerly anticipated than Gloomhaven. New edition of Call of Cthulhu, probably far more anticipated than Gloomhaven. So, Fleming Heron says the most anticipated ever. Yeah, I thought that's what they were kind of presenting it as. In fact, it may have even been on their Kickstarter. But I know I saw something pop up, and it was promoting the RPG, and it was like the most anticipated role-playing game ever. And I was like, bullshit. No way. All right, so here we got the board. And then we got a bunch of 6-sided dice. All right, let's see. Board doesn't seem huge, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's large, but it's not massive. As I try to unfold it here. Oh yeah, isn't that great content? Hand right there in the camera. Yes. Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, the content wise. Actually, the board is cool, but it's not as large as I was expecting. I will point out it does look like it is not to scale, but I could be wrong. But I think it's because they're trying to fit all these different sea zones in. And there are a lot of sea zones. And thankfully, it looks as if we go like across, down, across, down. So it shouldn't be too difficult to be able to find specific sea zones. So remember, this is dual-sided, right? So this is the late war side that we're taking a peek at here. Let's flip this on over. And we shall take a look at the early war side. So the question becomes, if you're playing a campaign game, do you need to flip this board over at some point? I'm curious. I'm wondering. Fleming Heron says, what have they done to Australia? I also pointed out South America is looking a little slim. It is, isn't it? Must be on keto diet or something. And I was going to say Africa looks pretty plump, as does Europe. So this is the early war board here. Very nice. And to make life easier, we do have, I would take a guess, these are our starting countries as far as the ports. Now, let's see something here. I'm kind of curious. Let me flip this back over. I thought we had a San Antonio port. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. It's No. Isn't that the Texas flag? So that's supposed to be San Antonio for the US? No, can't be. Can't be. I would take a guess this will probably be a sticking point for some people. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that much as long as you have some sort of visual presentation. Maybe a little closer look at the US here. There you go. At least the East Coast. Looked like Los Angeles was what they had on the West Coast. Anyway, it's a game, you know? I'm not going to lose like sleep over and freak out. Right. So we've got the game board. We've got all those 6-sided dice. We've got the various different port mats based on scenario. We have 5 counter sheets. And these are all those 1/2 inch. Yeah, they look 1/2 inch to me. Got a couple of player aids as well as our rule book. And that is what we find when we take everything from Seas of Thunder outside the box. So this is available now. Once again, it's designed by Neil Kabolsky. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jeff Horger and Chuck Maher, or Maher. It is for 2 players. Plays in 2 to, I guess, 60 hours. Carries an MSRP of $65. Of course, whenever we're taking a look at GMT Games, I always point out that they don't have massive print runs. So if you have any interest in picking up Seas of Thunder, don't wait around, because if you don't grab it when it's available, then you're stuck either waiting a couple of years for another print run or having to pay top dollar on the secondary market. And you don't want to do that. So Flaming Heron says, looks pretty good. Set aside a few days. Well, we've got shorter scenarios in here. I am going to look to play one of these shorter scenarios. See, funny thing is, I can get Elliot to play naval games too, because he still remembers all those good times with Fletcher Pratt's. So I think we should be able to get this to the table, at least check out the short scenarios. All righty, then. That is it for tonight's show. Tomorrow night, we are going to dive on in and take a first look at Dreams and Machines. This is a starter set from Modiphius Entertainment. Gotta say, this box has a lot of heft to it. Take a peek at the back here. I kind of get the impression that this is sort of, I don't know, kind of like what is it? What is it? Zero Horizon Dawn? Isn't that the name of the game? I've never had an opportunity to play it, actually. I kind of feel like it's got that sort of vibe to it. So probably be easier if I kind of angle this so you're not getting glare and you can actually see the cover of the box. But I am very curious. So Horizon Zero Dawn, thank you. Just like I always have to stop and be like, oh yeah, it's Red Dead Redemption, not Dead Red Redemption. So we're going to take a look at this, I should say, on tomorrow's show. Monday, we're going to dive on in and take a look at Uncharted Journeys from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. This is for 5E, and I believe it's incorporating some of the work that they did as far as like the downtime and the journeys and things like that when they had the One Ring first edition. I think it utilizes some, I don't want to say mechanics, but I do think it probably uses some of that mindset. Kevin King is hanging out. Kevin King says their take on Battletech. I don't know. We're going to find out. Like I said, I know very, very little, practically nothing about it. I know I shared a news piece when it was announced, but that's about it. Okay, then. So did I say Monday? I swear. One of these years I'll get the new schedule down. On next Tuesday's show, we'll be looking at this. So a week from tonight, it's another War Game Wednesday, because if you saw last week, I shared all the GMT Games goodness that arrived in a couple of big boxes. So we've got War Game Wednesdays for the foreseeable future. We're going to take a look at Barracks Emperors, or the Barracks Emperors. It's a card game that features the Roman time of crisis. So that will be a week from tonight. And then next Thursday, we will dive on into Masters of Dune. I want to say, I think this is the first of the Dune Adventures in the Imperium source books that came out. I will double check, because we got all of them that were sent. So I want to make sure that we kind of tackle those in order. So Man says there's going to be a show on Tuesday on my birthday, fireworks included too. There will be cake. There shall be cake. There will be blood. I don't know why I always throw that out there. Probably because I find that movie to be just unpleasant. Great acting. I talked about it before. Great acting. Excellent direction. Just a stunning looking film. Just unpleasant. Gives me the creeps, especially the end. The bowling alley and drinking your milkshake nonsense. Whoa, yeah. All righty. So that's it for tonight. If you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, because you're not only keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as well. But of course, I know not everybody has an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. I really do appreciate each and every one of you taking some time out of your busy lives to watch any of the videos here on the channel. So, of course, if you like this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review for the Pendragon starter set from our pals at Chaosium Inc. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it might happen to be in your neck of the woods. I hope to see you tomorrow, and I also hope you all get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, that's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.